Hey guys, it's George. I'm going to go over George's budget for Excel version 14, and I want to cover the exciting new features in this release. Before I do that, I just want to go over a brief overview of the software. So currently I'm in the account summary. Up top here you have a list of your accounts. And for example, we can take a look at this Chase checking. There's a $12,000 balance there. You can also set goals. So for example, I have a goal to reach of 20,000 in that account. So I'm 60% of the way there. Down below that, you can see your total assets, liabilities, and your net amount. Below that, you have your expense categories to watch. These are like top 5 expenses you want to keep an eye on. And below that, you have your yearly income, monthly income for current year and prior year, current month and prior month. And you have charts to reflect that data. And below that, you have a category report and chart where you can focus in on one category. In this case, it's restaurants. And you can see the data over a period of time. So for this particular one, we're looking at the last 12 months. You can see here that the data is trending up, and somewhere towards the middle of the year, it is going over budget, and that's indicated by these red lights. Okay, so that's the account summary. I'm going to shrink that down so you can see all of that data that's on that one worksheet. So that's an example of the account summary. So let's next look at the registers. So let's look at this first one here, Chase checking. And one of the things I want to point out is the reconciliation features. In this particular example here, up top here, we have some summary data. We have the total outstanding, register balance, and total clear. So the register balance here lines up with this running balance here. And there's one item outstanding. And we can scroll here and see that one item right there for $30 that's outstanding. If I change that to reconcile, 0 items are outstanding, and then your register balance equals your total clear. Okay, and there's some other tools up here to help you with managing your register account. Let's go back to the account summary here, and let's look at some of the reports. Here's a monthly report with indicator lights and percentage of the budget. For example, we can look at restaurants, and it's 80% of the budget's been used. So this is helpful information when you're trying to stay within a budget. That's the monthly one. There's also a yearly budget for the entire year data. So that's budget versus actual. I'm going to go back to the account summary. I also want to show you the category list and budget sheet. This is where you set your budget for each category. That's your income categories and your expense categories. Up top is a summary of the budget data. And what's nice about these categories is that you can edit them, you could delete them, you could change them to your own categories. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the account summary. So now I would like to go over the new features. And the first one I want to talk about is the combined register. It's a master register of all transactions from all of the accounts. And why that's very beneficial, let's go into this individual Chase checking account again. And let's say that I wanted to search for groceries here. So I do get a subtotal of those transactions, but it only applies to this particular register. So let's go ahead and clear that filter. So if I want to find out all the transactions related to groceries, I would go to the account summary. I would go up here to all 10 registers combined. I would filter by groceries. And this here is all the grocery transactions from all accounts. So if I go here to the account name, you could see that. You can see that there were 3 different credit card accounts that were used to make grocery purchases. Up top here, you also get a subtotal. You also get a count of the transactions that met that filter criteria. And there's also a count of all the transactions in the combined register. You can further filter that by date, different time periods, description. You can see that there were 3 different places we visited for groceries, and even category type. So we're going to go ahead and clear that filter. So the next new feature I want to show you is the custom reports, where you could change the reports to your liking. So right up here, I'm going to click Custom Reports, and instantly you get a report of all the data that you entered into your registers, summarized. So I entered 2 years of data in the registers. So what's great about this report is you can see 2 years of data side by side here. Here's year 2019. There's a total for 2019. And then 2020. And then your total for year 2020. And then the grand total of the 2 years combined. These plus or minus indicators here, you could do that and click this one. And now you've got the 2 years right next to each other. So you could compare, for example, groceries here. You could see that groceries went from 3,500 to about 4,100 from 1 year to the next. Okay, so I'm going to expand those. Now I want to talk about up top here, I want to talk about the timeline here. Here's where you can focus in on a particular time period. So if you just wanted to see 2019, you could click there, just 2019 data. If you wanted to just see 2020, it flipped to 2020 if you want to see both of them. You can also narrow it down to quarters. So if you just wanted to see first quarter of 2020, you could do that. Or first and second quarter of 2020, you could do that. I'm going to clear that. You can do by months. So if you want to see, focus in on a particular month of January 2020, you could look at that particular month. I'm going to go ahead and clear that. And you can even get down to days. So if you wanted to just show data that pertain to specific days of the year, let's say, for example, the first 14 days in January, like that. So that's your first 14 days in January of 2020 data. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. So that's the timeline that allows you to focus in on specific time periods. Now the particular setup of the data I have is based on also the category type up here. So the data that I currently have has 3 main category types. I'm just focusing in on the income and expense. If you just want to see income, you could click that and just show income. If you just want to focus in on the expenses, you could do that. If you want to see both of them, just click and slide, and now you can see income and expense categories. Okay, of course, this is beneficial so you could see how you're doing each month. You want to make sure, of course, that you're bringing in more income than your expenses. Now, this custom report is strictly for actual data. It's not budgeted data, it's just actual data that you entered into the registers. Now let's take a look at this item right here, account name. You could filter by account name to just show data from a particular account by selecting one of the accounts here. Now I'm going to show you another way to be able to filter by account name is we're going to add a slicer. So just select inside here, the table here, go to Pivot Analyze, go to Insert Slicer, and you want to insert a slicer for the account name. Click OK. And we're going to drag that account name up here. Because this is customizable, you can adjust and add things to it. So there are your accounts. I'm going to change the color of this to orange. Okay, so you can focus in, let's say that you just want to focus on Chase checking. That data, just by clicking that, adjusted the data here. What if we wanted to just focus in on this Discover credit card? And it's basically your expenses because that's typically what you're using your credit card for. So these are just your expense categories here. So if you want to see all of your accounts in the data, Just clear the filter there, and you have all of your accounts. Now this Chase Savings is kind of dimmed out because there are no income and expense categories within that Chase Savings. There was just transfers. So if I click on transfers, these two accounts had transfers in them. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that and just focus in on the income and expense. So this slicer here for account name makes it really easy to just focus in on particular accounts or all your accounts for the reports. So let's look at the report. Down here we have the income categories less the expense categories. What's really cool about these custom reports is that you can group categories and create kind of like a main category subcategory. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So let's say that we want to group these three items. You select them, right click, click group. Now if you're going to group, I recommend you grouping all the items within a particular main category type. So let's group all the expense items. So let's do our next grouping. Let's do food, let's do coffee shop. And if the items are not next to each other, you have to press Control. Groceries, restaurants, right click and press group. Let's go ahead and name these. So this first one here, let's call this car expenses. The second one here, group 2 that we just made, let's call this food. I'm just going to make that, change that just to car. So we got car, food, and let's just put the rest of these in housing. We'll just create a third one. These two, and then we'll just put this one here, group. And this group 3 here, we'll just call this housing. Okay, so by being able to customize this report, you now have grouped items. And even you could do that with the income too. Maybe you've got a husband and wife and you want to, do husband's salary, wife's salary, and get totals that way. You could group your income categories just like I did these expenses. Let me take this data and just put 2020 here and focus it on just this year. Now the benefit of this is that you can get a total of not just the individual amount spent on gas, auto insurance, and loan, but really how much you're actually spending on all of your car related expenses. Okay, same thing for housing. How much you're spending on these 4 individual ones, you get a grand total for total housing. Same thing for food. You can see how much you're spending in individual categories of coffee, groceries, and restaurants. But what about the combined amount of all 3? You can see right there is the food total. So that's the benefit of grouping these into main categories, subcategory type groupings. You can also focus on just the totals for those groupings that you made. Okay, so I'm going to expand that. So I'm going to remove, in order to remove the groupings, just select like that and go to ungroup. Okay, so that's how you do groupings. So let's adjust this data further. Let's say that in groceries, what places did we spend that grocery money at? So to find that out is you take the description here, drag it down below those 2 items, okay? And then you're going to get these little indicator plus and minus for groceries. I'm going to expand that. And now we could see for groceries we spent that at 3 different places: Publix, Trader Joe's, and Whole Foods, and how much we spent on each of those places. So that is the benefit of this customization, to be able to see further detail. In each of these items also you can expand them further. So that's the level of detail now that you could see right down to where the money was spent for a particular category. Now I'm going to show an example of entering a transaction in one of the registers and show its impact on the report and also the master register. So we can see here that we spent groceries in 3 different places. So let's add one more. So let's say that we went to Walmart. So let's go back to the account summary. Let's go to Chase checking. I'm going to insert the date here. Okay, let's go to, went to Walmart, and let's do a split transaction so you can see how that works. Let's say we spent $100 there. And you enter split here. So I'm going to break up that split into 2 different expenses. So let's say that one of the items was groceries, $77 on groceries. And now let's go ahead and enter the other split. And let's say that we spent the other remaining amount on clothing and shoes. And to the right here, it shows you the remaining amount to get it to balance. So we spent $23 on clothing, shoes category. Okay, so that was entered in this Chase checking, and that's an example of how to split a transaction between 2 different categories. You can split it between multiple categories, not just 2. So let's look at the master register now. Let's go back to the account summary. Let's go to all 10 registers combined, and you look right here. It added that to your master register. Let's go to the custom reports. There's Walmart right there, $77 in December 2020. And there's clothing, shoes at Walmart for $23 right there. So anything you add to the individual registers gets instantly added to the master register and these custom reports. So I want to go over another layout here, and that is, what if you wanted to find out what account was used to make these particular purchases? So to do that, I want to change the layout of this first. Go to Design. I'm going to go to Compact Form. And then I'm going to go over here to the Pivot Table Fields. And I'm going to take account name, and I'm going to drag it below description. And now you can see, for example, this Walmart purchase that we added here for $77, you can see that that was from Chase checking. Publix, for example, here, you could see that we spent about $2,500 for the entire year. Discover was for the first couple of months, and then we used Amex for the rest of the year. So that's another example of how you could lay out your data. Okay, so I'm going to drag this back up here. I'm going to change the view, design view, back to tabular form. Okay, another thing I want to show you is up here, you can change the colors of the pivot table to the different colors here. So if you want, for example, purple, you could do that. And there's a lot of other kind of color looks that you could change it to. So that's a basic overview of the custom reports. The last thing I want to show you that's new is people were asking for more categories. So let's go to the category list. So now there are 50 income categories and 200 expense categories that you can customize. Okay, so let's go back to the account summary. So that's a basic overview of George's budget for Excel version 14. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link below the video that you can click and it'll take you to the product page where you can find out more information.